think he's doing Army. I think that's his deal. He's doing like
right. Yeah, no, I get
Boy.
it. Yeah, it's like Gomer Pyle. Yeah.
Kind of like Gomer. Not Gomer. No, he's doing I don't know what he's doing.
Well, I mean, not Gomer specifically himself, but that sort of world of humor. Like T. Boone Pickens. No, not T. Boone Pickens, but T-Bone Pickens.
That's some of the most
Slim
visually...
Pickens. There we go. Now,
exactly.
Like Slim Pickens in Doctor Strangelove.
I love pneumatic tubes. If you ever read articles about old New York, there's a lot of stuff about how the tube system was... There was an inter-building tube system, too.
Oh, really?
I don't know how that could possibly work. And the tubes were 16 inches in diameter.
Yeah.
And they would shoot pneumatic messages, like they'd push them between buildings. And none of those tubes are there, and they're thinking about like using them for fiber optics and stuff like that.
So this was actually the art test I took.
Oh.
I had to make this whole scene in a day.
Really?
Yeah.
No. Did they pay you for that? 1 day?
Barely.
Wow.
I was so scared.
How much did you get done?
I think almost all the geometry.
Oh. Wow.
In some cases, it used to be an overnight render.
So this was the first scene in the game that we ever actually did with some test assets. So I had, this is when I was proving out, okay, yes, we can do this. There was this hallway scene. We had manning up, running up and down. We had the security cam, kind of camera switching. We had text on the screen. We had animations. We had geolocation of the sound relative to the camera. The typing was down the hallway. And we had Manning running up and down. It was a really good test scene, and it kind of came to it at the very last second. Like literally, like, I was compiling code as people ran in the room because I had a awful bug. But this was sort of like proof that yes, we have all the elements to make this work. This was the first scene ever put together. And Manny, notice in this scene, Manny hardly ever clips behind anything, and that's partially because I didn't have the buffers working yet. But it was good enough that when people saw it, like, they were really impressed, and I was kind of surprised because I was like the new guy at LucasArts and was kind of half-assing my way through this and somehow made everybody really impressed. So I thought, at that point, I thought, okay, we can do this.
So is there a reason that a lot of people who are in administrative positions of power have New York accents? Is that a
Everyone in the jazz era was from New York.
Well, yeah, that's true.
A lot of people don't know that. My writing has changed a lot since this. Like I was really trying to write good dialogue here, which to me at the time meant a lot of like puns and like wordplay. Like this suit is just this deck of cards is a lot like me. It's ragged around the edges, but I've got more suits. And I forget what it is, but it was like everything had to be this kind of like bon mot.
Well, that's kind of Chandler-esque too. I mean, you know.
But I think I ease off on it in Act 2. I think I just start writing or in Year 2, there's a lot more just normal talking, which I think I kind of like a little bit more now. I mean, it's fun to like have a crazy wordplay like that, but you can just kind of trip over yourself a lot too much if you focus on that, I think.
You hear reverb on the steps, and you hear the reverb on his voice, and that was real-time. It's his real-time reverb in a time when we never did that. We always pre-baked the files with reverb, and Jeff really had to fight for, I think it was like 5% of the CPU. But now anything that happens in this garage goes through that reverb. And like to modern game folks, audio people, it's just totally basic, no big deal. But back then it was such a big deal. And he really had to jump through hoops for it, and it's so great.
Mark Hamer, remember animating that Glottis coming out, and he had to put this thing called a lattice on his butt. And he was like, "What are you working on, Mark?" "I'm working on the Glottis butt lattice." And he was always like working on the Glottis butt lattice to like morph and squash and stretch his butt as it came out of the door. And so, 3 cheers to Mark Hamer and his Glottis butt lattice. Amazing work, still remembered to this day.
Elevator code.
Yep.
Elevator code's the worst, man. Door code in general. There goes Don.
So there was a door box that you would draw on the ground that would have data attached to it that would trigger the art and the...
Well, it's like the old, like when you walk into a supermarket in the old days, they didn't have like a IR thing that was pointing at you. They had like a pad on the ground.
Yep.
You would roll your cart or step on the pad on the ground, and it would automatically open the grocery store for you. And it's just like that. Like there's a little invisible box that that you cross that triggers all that stuff.
And then all the fiddly bits of people step on the box, step off the box, step back on it while the
Yeah.
doors are opening and closing, and
Yeah.
those doors are broken for a long time.
Savvy viewers will note that this the lobby is based on a real building in San Francisco with Mexican architecture or Mayan Deco architecture. 450 Sutter, yeah, which is an actual building, which is the inspiration for the whole business. Yeah, San Francisco's kind of there's a lot of deco-ish stuff around town, and that was a big part of making this world look the way it looked.
I love that mural because it's the 3 ways of traveling in the land of the dead, the car, and the train, and the boat. There's no air travel in the land of the dead. No land of the dead airlines.
I think the camera choices in this game were actually pretty fantastic as well. I don't know who's responsible for that. Was it storyboarded or...
Is that you, Pete? Or?
Yeah, probably a little bit. There's a lot of stuff got worked out ahead of time, certainly, and I mean because, you know, we didn't necessarily build full 360 3D worlds. Oh, I mean, well, except for like the offices and stuff.
I don't know why we chose Robert Frost for the balloon shape either.
Oh, that was genius
because it would be
the
hard to make it Robert Frost.
Yes, and also because I think the whole implication is that the clown is way beyond his pay grade, and he has disdain for all those around him, and so he makes shapes that his lowly
I never
audience
even thought
would...
about that being testimony to the skills of the clown. I thought of it as being Manny being a smartass. Because he asked for it. He's like, oh yeah? Can you do Robert Frost? And then, of course, the clown does it.
But see, that's a Chandler thing, too, because the detective is always smarter than sort of the world that he's in. So he's teasing the clown.
So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. Because he knows the clown knows what Robert Frost looks like.
Can you imagine actually pulling yourself up a little chain of ties that are as long as the, like...
Well, that's what's great about... And then I like the view
like,
down.
He's so calm about it, too. He's like, chip, many stories. I mean, part of it is, I guess, he probably won't die.
He's already dead.
He's already dead.
He's already dead, so it's really just...
And I was thinking, does he have the muscles to do that? Whereas, no, he doesn't have any muscles. He's just a living skeleton. How is he moving? He's magic. It's
spirit
soul.
is animating, yes.
The ties, when Manny later uses the ties to cross over to the roof, he wanted to be more like a little bit more... less adventure game and more sort of skill game where you had to kind of, line up the ties and throw the lasso and hook it on the thing. And I'll be honest with you, that was technically not something I was prepared to do in any way, shape, or form. It was kind of all I could do to make the rest of the stuff work. So the ties and the beavers were, and actually the shocks on the tree were all supposed to be a little bit more dynamic than a lot of the canned stuff you typically have in an adventure game. We just couldn't do it.
I always liked the music up on the ledge.
Me too. It's very Bernard Herrmann.
And it made
Vertigo.
always made me feel like a little. Maybe it's because I actually have
Vertigo?
a little bit of vertigo or whatever you said. No, vertigo
But
not the
isn't
thing.
that
but, yeah.
that happens a lot in
Fear
Vertigo, the
Heights.
movie Vertigo, like the
Yes.
na, 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 na,
Yeah.
na, na,
Yeah.
na, na.
Yeah, it probably comes from that.
Like that dreamy falling sensation.
Well, I'm a huge Bernard Herrmann fan. How can you not be? He's really he was the guy who really brought kind of a seriousness of classical music to scoring. I mean, the guys before me, there were great composers before him. They were a little more sort of kind of the entertaining aspect of orchestral music, and I think he was really very serious about it.
The computers in the game are, I think, where you can see Peter Chan's 12 Monkeys like influence, like Terry Gilliam mix of like, I don't know if you call it steampunk, but there's like a lot of analog big tube type things combined with Art Deco and old-fashioned typewriter keyboards.
Well, they had steam and punk in those days, right? But they didn't actually call it steampunk, right?
In the 90s, I think we might
They
have had
did?
steampunk back then. Oh yeah.
Jeez. See, I told you I was from the Mad Men era.
I'm so glad they made a show about you guys. In the land of the living, the people look horrifying because of that. Have you ever seen that optical illusion where you take a picture of someone from a magazine, you cut rectangles out of their eyes and their mouth, and then you turn them upside down, and they just look like demons?
Oh, yeah, totally.
That's land of the living.
Yeah.
What is this crazy music? How did you get it all warp sounding?
Well, that's a great...
See, remember that I used to, when I did all the themes for Grimm, I carried around a little handheld cassette, right? So I'd go for my hike in the hills in the morning, and I'd carry my little cassette with me, and if something popped in my head, I'd hum into it.
And it drops into a puddle?
Well, those cassettes, I don't know if you remember much about cassette technology, because, you know.
I remember cassettes.
You do?
I made some mixtapes.
They didn't always last, especially the little tiny ones didn't last for a super long time. So, you know, if you used it all the time, which I did to compose, the machine would, the mechanism would start to wear out, especially if it ran out low on batteries. So yeah, that was me sitting at the piano working on that theme for the Land of the Living, which I recorded on the little handheld cassette and then played it back with batteries that were running out and recorded
Super
that
neat.
into the digital system for
And
the
so
game.
that's awesome. Was that an accident at first? Or you just ran out of power at an earlier time writing something else?
You know, I can't remember. I think, it was an accident, but, you know, I kind of meant to do it too, you know.
Down in QA, we got on the project way, way earlier than we ever had on any other project, and we would play the game with the concept art on the screen. But Manny was modeled and done and lit. Or, well, maybe he wasn't lit, I don't know, but he would zoom around the concept art, and it was all black and white. And that's why I was...
Oh, that would be neat.
Yeah. You know, the games we make nowadays, we try to keep them real time, and the environments will come in the tens of thousands of polygons probably, but or at least under 100, I would say, at least at the Telltale Studio. But here, I think we're almost unlimited, unless it crashed the machines all the time.
Yes, it was unlimited, and it was like trying to render it on your iPhone.
Well, remember,
Crazy.
he modeled like every single nut and bolt everywhere in the
That's
environment.
what it was.
And they were all high res.
Yeah, I was about to say, a certain amount of this was us not
It
really
might get a
knowing, and us
close-up.
not being efficient about where we, how we set everything up.
As an animator, when you open one of these environments to animate in, you have to basically throw everything away, except for the one thing that that Manny touches or walks next to or something.
How is he sweating without skin? So inaccurate. Try to get it really accurate with the punching. You know, left, left, right, right, left, left, right. I think that's how you do it.
Oh,
Well, you don't just do 1, 2, 1, 2 with a speed bog.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it looks better.
In my boxing history.
My grandpa used to have a boxing bag in his basement. He showed me how it worked once.
So there's a scene here. So there's the wine bottle there on the side, or sorry, the bourbon bottle, and there's the taking a slug of his booze, and that was actually like we had lots of math problems early in the game where we were lining up camera angles, like you mentioned, and these camera angles, if we had it off between the real time and the pre-render stuff, things got kind of messy. And so that was one of the first scenes we had where Manny as one character goes and interacts with another item in the scene, and it also has to be placed very precisely in the scene because it has to appear to be on the shelf. And it was really difficult to coordinate, you know. He has to walk to exactly the right spot, line up to perform his animation. The cup has its own animation of flying through the air to his mouth. There's all these weird ways we handled it. I think we changed that later to handle it better so that the cup was actually attached and we'd swap it in, but, you know, blank out the one that was on the shelf, put in the one that was in his hand. It's like a magic trick, but originally that was something we used to test it out and make it work, and I remember spending days on that and just being worried like, oh man, we're never going to get this to align perfectly between 2D and 3D.